The lights flickered again on the space station called Harmony's Edge. Commander Hana pressed her crystalline hand against the control panel, feeling the vibrations from another enemy blast. Her people, the Valari, were not fighters. They were healers. For thousands of years they had traveled the galaxy helping sick and wounded beings from every species they could find. Now they were the ones who needed help. "Commander, the shields are down to 12%, called Day from his station. The young Valari's crystal body was glowing bright blue with worry. When their kind felt fear, they couldn't hide it. Their bodies showed their emotions in colors that everyone could see. Through the station's windows, Hana could see the Krovic warships floating in space around them. The Krovic were large, mean creatures that looked like walking crocodiles. They wanted the Valari's healing technology. They had demanded it many times, but Hana's people would never give weapons to those who would use healing to hurt others. "How long before they break through?" Hana asked. "Maybe 1 hour," Day said. His voice was shaking. "Maybe less." Another blast hit the station. This time, the lights went out completely for a few seconds. When they came back on, several control panels were smoking. The smell of burning electronics filled the air. "Ma'am," called Sua from the medical bay, "we have 15 wounded from that last hit. I need more supplies." Hana looked around at her crew. There were only 40 Valari left on the station. Most had been evacuated weeks ago when the Krovic First Aid arrived. But someone had to stay to protect their most important healing research. If the Krovic got their hands on it, they could turn medicine into poison. The station shook again. Sparks flew from the ceiling. "Day," Hana said, "send out a distress call. All frequencies. Tell them who we are and what's happening." "Yes, ma'am." Day's fingers moved over his controls. "Message sent. But Commander, who will help us?" "The Krovic. Empire is too strong. Most species are afraid of them." Hana didn't answer. She didn't have a good answer to give. Far away, on the edge of human space, a man named Minho was working the night shift at a listening post. Humans had built these stations all over their territory to watch for trouble. Minho was drinking his third cup of coffee when his computer started beeping. "What's this?" he said to himself. The message was coming from deep space, far from human worlds. He put on his headphones and listened. The voice was soft and musical, not like any human voice. It spoke in Galactic Common, the language most species use to talk to each other. "This is Commander Hana of the Valari Research Station Harmony's Edge. We are under attack by Krovic forces. Our shields are failing. We have wounded. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. The Valari have always helped others. We have healed millions across the galaxy. We have never asked for anything in return. But now we ask for help. Please." "Anyone?" Minho sat up straight. Everyone in human space knew about the Valari. They were the doctors of the galaxy. When humans first met other species, the Valari had been the first to welcome them. They had taught human doctors new ways to heal injuries and cure diseases. They had saved thousands of human lives and never asked for payment. Minho grabbed his phone and called his commander. "Commander Nari, you need to hear this," he said. 2 minutes later, Nari was standing behind Minho listening to the message. She was a small woman, but everyone who knew her understood that she was tough as steel. She had fought in 3 wars and never backed down from a fight. "How far away are they?" she asked. "About 6 days at top speed," Minho said. "But ma'am, the Krovic have a whole fleet there. It would be suicide." Nari was quiet for a moment. Then she picked up the red phone on Minho's desk. The red phone only called one place, Earth Defense Command. "This is Station Commander Nari. I need to speak to Admiral June. Right now. Tell him it's about the Valari." Back on Harmony's Edge, the situation was getting worse. Another Krovic blast had taken out their main power generator. They were running on backup power now, and that wouldn't last long. "Commander," Day called out, "I'm getting responses to our distress call." "Good news?" Hana asked. "No, ma'am. The Altarian Republic says they can't help. Too far away. The Centauri Federation says the Krovic are too dangerous. The Trade Union says it's not their problem." Day's crystal body was turning darker blue. 18 responses so far, all negative. Sua came running from the medical bay. "Commander, we just lost life support in Section 7. I had to move all the wounded to Section 4. How long before we lose life support everywhere?" Hana asked. With backup power? Maybe 2 hours. Hana closed her eyes. Her people had spent their lives helping others. They had flown into war zones to rescue the wounded. They had gone to plague worlds to help the sick. They had never thought about their own safety when others needed help. Now those same people they had helped were too scared to help them. The station shook again. Through the windows, Hana could see the Krovik ships moving closer. Soon they would board the station. The Krovik didn't take prisoners. Ma'am, Dai said suddenly, I'm getting something. Long-range signal. Another rejection? Hana asked. No, ma'am, it's different. The voice that came through the speakers was rough and deep. It spoke Galactic Common, but with an accent Hana had heard before. It was a human voice. Valari Station Harmony's Edge, this is Admiral June of the Terran, Republic Defense Force. We received your distress call. Help is coming. Hang on. Day looked at his instruments with surprise. Commander, I'm reading hyperspace signatures. 12 ships, human ships. They're big ones. Hana felt something she hadn't felt in days. Hope. Everyone in the galaxy knew stories about humans. They came from a world so dangerous that just living there made them into warriors. They had survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and predators that could kill almost anything. Other species called Earth a death world, because only the strongest could live there. But Hana also knew something else about humans. They never forgot their friends. The station's emergency lights suddenly seemed brighter. Outside, the Krovik. Ships were moving into attack position, but now they would face something they had never fought before. Humans were coming. And when humans decided to protect something, the galaxy learned to get out of their way. War Marshal Thane stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the Valari station through the main screen. The big Krovik leader was covered in dark green scales and had teeth like knives. He had conquered 17 star systems and never lost. A battle. Begin boarding operations, he ordered his crew. I want that healing technology. His weapons officer, a smaller Krovik named Breck, looked nervous. Sir, we're getting strange readings from the edge of the system. What kind of readings? Thane asked. Hyperspace signatures, big ones, 12 contacts. Thane laughed, showing all his sharp teeth. Probably some trade ships running away. No one will help the Valari. Everyone is too scared of us. Suddenly, space itself seemed to tear open at the edge of the star system. 12 ships dropped out of hyperspace, and they were not trade ships. They were warships, big, dark, and covered in weapons. Thane stopped laughing. The lead ship sent a message. The voice was calm and cold. This is Admiral June of the Terran, Republic Defense Force. You have 30 seconds to stop attacking the Valari station and leave this system. If you don't, we will consider you an enemy of humanity and our allies. On the Valari station, Commander Hana and her crew watched the new ships with amazement. Day was reading their energy signatures on his instruments. Commander, these human ships are huge, he said. The biggest one is twice the size of a Krovik dreadnought. Sua came running from the medical bay. Commander, I pulled up everything we have about humans in our medical database. She put the information on the main screen. The crew read in silence. Human homeworld. Earth. Gravity, 3.2 times galactic standard. Atmosphere, 21% oxygen, toxic to most species. Weather, extreme storms capable of destroying cities. Natural disasters, common. Native life, extremely dangerous predators. Look at this, Sua said, pointing to another part of the file. Average human can survive injuries that would kill most species. Their bones are 3 times denser than ours. Their muscles are built for high gravity. And look at this. They actually get stronger when they're injured. Day's crystal body turned pale yellow with fear. These are the beings coming to help us. Hana looked at the data. Humans were scary, yes, but they were scary things that had come to help when no one else would. On his flagship, Thane was reading the same kind of information about humans. His intelligence officer had pulled up everything the Krovik knew. Sir, the officer said, humans come from what galactic science calls a Class 12 death world. Only a few dozen worlds that dangerous have ever produced intelligent life. So, Thane said, I don't care how tough they are. There are only 12 of them and 40 of us. The intelligence officer looked worried. Sir, there's more. Humans. Don't fight like other species. They don't just try to win. They try to make sure their enemies can never fight again, Thane growled. He had not conquered 17 systems by being scared of stories. All ships, open fire on the human vessels. Show them what happens when someone interferes with the Krovic. Empire. The Krovic fleet fired first. Plasma beams and missile swarms flew across space toward the human ships. What happened next shocked everyone watching. The human ships didn't try to dodge. Instead, they flew straight into the weapons fire. But they didn't just take the hits, they used them. The lead destroyer, commanded by Captain Yeji, actually flew faster after being hit by plasma fire, using the energy to boost her engines. Impossible, Thane whispered. Captain Yeji's voice came over the radio, talking to her crew. The Volari could hear it because their station was monitoring all communications. All right, everyone, standard Death World tactics. Use their gravity well. For acceleration, maximum G-burn in 3, 2, 1. The human destroyer suddenly moved faster than any ship that size should be able to move. It was using the planet's gravity like a slingshot, but at speeds that should have crushed everyone inside. On the Volari station, Sua was reading human medical data in shock. Their bodies can handle gravitational forces that would turn us into liquid, she said. They're not just tough, they're built for this. The destroyer Lightning's Edge, Captain Yeji's ship, came around the planet so fast it looked like a streak of light. It fired its weapons at point-blank range into the side of a Krovic cruiser. The cruiser's shields collapsed instantly, but that was just the beginning. Captain Tay, commanding the heavy cruiser Iron Thunder, did something that made even Thane step back from his viewing screen. She flew her ship down into the planet's atmosphere. "Sir," Breck called out, "that human ship just entered the atmosphere. At that speed, it should be torn apart." Instead, Iron Thunder used the atmospheric friction to make its weapons even more powerful. When it fired, its projectiles were moving so fast they punched through Krovic armor like it was made of paper. Admiral June's voice came over the communication system again, but this time he was talking to the Volari station. "Commander Hana, this is Admiral June. We're deploying rescue teams to your station. Our Marines will board in 5 minutes to provide medical assistance and defense." "Admiral," Hana replied, "the Krovic might use us as hostages." "Ma'am, with respect, they're welcome to try. June out." Major Leah, commander of the human Marines, was already suiting up aboard the assault ship Valkyrie's Wrath. Her Marines were putting on armor that looked like it could stop a tank. "Listen up," she told her team. "Standard evacuation protocol. But remember, we're dealing with a species that glows when they're scared. Try to look friendly." Sergeant Wu laughed. "Ma'am, we're about to board a station that's under fire in powered armor, carrying enough weapons to level a city block. How friendly can we look?" "Good point. Just try not to accidentally break anything when we get there." The Marine transport ship flew straight through the battle, taking hits from Krovic weapons but never slowing down. When it reached the Volari station, the Marines used rocket packs to fly across open space while enemy fire flew all around them. On the station, Day watched through the windows as the human Marines approached. "Commander, they're flying through space in the middle of a battle, without ships, just flying." The Marines cut through the station's outer hull with tools that looked like they could cut through a mountain. When they came inside, the Volari crew got their first close look at humans. They were bigger than expected, but not as big as Krovic. What was scary was how they moved. They moved like predators, like things that had spent millions of years hunting other dangerous things. But when Major Leah took off her helmet, she smiled at Commander Hana. "Ma'am, I'm Major Leah, Terran Marines. We're here to help. Do you have wounded?" "Yes," Hana said. 15 injured, 3 critical." "Medic Yu, you're up," Leah called. A human medic came forward carrying a medical pack that looked like it weighed more than most Volari. But when he started treating the wounded, his hands were gentle and careful. "Your people saved my daughter's life 2 years ago," he told Sua quietly. "Volari doctors came to our colony during a plague outbreak. They worked for 3 weeks without sleep. Now it's our turn." Outside, the battle was turning. The Krovic had expected to fight ships. They hadn't expected to fight humans who turned space itself into a weapon. Admiral June's flagship, Storm's Herald, was doing something that shouldn't have been possible. It was ramming through the Krovic battle line while its crew operated under crushing acceleration that would kill most aliens. War Marshal Thane watched his fleet break apart under the human attack. These weren't just warriors. These were creatures that had learned to fight on a world that was trying to kill them every day. But Thane had one more trick. He activated his emergency transmitter. All Krovic forces in this sector. This is War Marshal Thane. I am calling for immediate reinforcements. Send everything. In the distance, space began to shimmer as more Krovic ships prepared to jump into the system. Thane smiled his sharp-toothed smile. Let the humans handle 40 ships. Soon they would face 200. On the Valari station, Major Leah got a message from her admiral. Major, we're reading massive hyperspace signatures. Krovic reinforcements incoming. Estimate 200 ships. Leah looked at Commander Hana. Ma'am, we might have a problem. The space around the Valari station filled with new ships as the Krovic reinforcements arrived. War Marshal Thane counted them with satisfaction. 200 ships. Against 12 human vessels, the math was simple. But Admiral June's response came immediately over the communication channels. All Krovic vessels, this is your final warning. Leave now or face the consequences. Thane laughed so hard his scales rattled. Human Admiral, look around you. You are outnumbered 20-1. Surrender now and we might let you live. There was silence for a moment. Then Admiral June's voice came back, and it was colder than space itself. War Marshal, you seem confused about something. We didn't come here to fight you. We came here to protect our friends. There's a difference. On the human flagship, Storm's Herald, Admiral June turned to his crew. They were all humans who had grown up on Earth, a world where everything was designed to kill you. Gravity that could crush bones, weather that could level cities, animals that hunted in packs and never gave up. All ships, June said into his communicator, execute pattern storm. Show them what happens when you threaten family. Captain Tay, still commanding Iron Thunder from inside the planet's atmosphere, was the first to move. She flew her ship up out of the air so fast it looked like a missile launch. But instead of heading for the enemy fleet, she flew toward the asteroid belt at the edge of the system. What is she doing? Commander Hana asked from the station. Major Leah, still aboard the station with her Marines, smiled. Something impossible. Watch. Iron Thunder reached the asteroid belt and began firing at the largest rocks, not to destroy them, but to push them. The ship's weapons turned the asteroids into projectiles, sending them flying toward the Krovic fleet at incredible speed. That's not possible, War Marshal Thane said. You can't use asteroids as weapons. The targeting would be impossible. Captain Tay's voice came over the radio. Sir, you've never tried to hunt dinner on a world where the dinner fights back. This is easy. The first asteroid hit a Krovic destroyer. The ship simply vanished in a flash of light and metal. But the humans were just getting started. Captain Yeji in Lightning's Edge was doing something even crazier. She was flying her ship in and out of the Krovic fleet formation, moving so fast that their weapons couldn't track her. Every time she passed an enemy ship, she fired at point-blank range. How can they handle those acceleration forces? Day asked from his station. Medic Gyu, who was still treating wounded Valari, answered without looking up from his patient. We grew up in 3 times normal gravity. This feels like a light workout. On the Krovic flagship, Thane was getting desperate. His ships couldn't hit the human vessels because they moved in ways that should have killed their crews. His weapons couldn't penetrate their armor because the humans had learned to build things that could survive their home world. All ships, target the Valari station, he ordered. If we can't have their technology, no one can. That was when Thane learned why humans were called the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The moment the Krovic weapons turned toward the station, every human ship changed direction at the same time. They didn't just move to defend the station. They moved like a pack of predators protecting their young. Major Leah got on her radio. All human forces, the enemy has targeted civilians. Rules of engagement are now unrestricted. Commander Hana didn't understand what that meant until she saw what happened next. Captain Hyun, commanding the squadron of human fighters, did something that made Thane's blood run cold. He led his ships in a coordinated attack that used the system's 2 moons as cover. But they didn't hide behind the moons. They used the moon's gravity to slingshot their ships at speeds that turned them into weapons. They're using celestial mechanics as a tactical advantage, Sua said in amazement. They're turning the entire star system into their weapon. The human ships moved like they were alive, like they were all parts of one giant creature that had decided to hunt. They coordinated without seeming to communicate, flowing around each other in patterns that looked like a dance but felt like death. Commander Sewell, aboard the medical ship Mercy's Light, was doing something that should have been impossible. She was running rescue operations while fighting a battle. Her ship would dive into the enemy fleet, rescue escape pods from destroyed Krovik ships, then fight its way back out. "Why are they saving our people?" Breck asked War Marshal Thane. Thane didn't have an answer. The Krovik way was simple. Destroy your enemies completely. But humans were different. Even in the middle of a battle, they were trying to save lives. The tide of battle turned when the humans showed why Earth had produced the galaxy's most feared warriors. They didn't just fight to win. They fought to make sure the fighting stopped forever. Captain Baum, the chief engineer aboard Storm's Herald, had been working on something special. She had taken weapons from destroyed Krovik ships and somehow made them work with human technology. "Admiral," she reported to June, "the surprise is ready." "Do it," June replied. What happened next became a legend that spread across the galaxy. The human ships suddenly began firing weapons that the Krovik recognized. Their own weapons, but somehow changed. The plasma cannons that the humans had captured were now firing with 3 times normal power. "How?" Thane whispered. "Engineer Baum's voice came over the communication channel. "You built your weapons for your world. We rebuilt them for ours. Earth standard gravity makes everything stronger." The Krovik fleet began to break apart. Ships that had been confident of victory suddenly found themselves outgunned by their own weapons. But Thane had one last desperate plan. He ordered his flagship toward the Valari station. "If I'm going to die," he told his crew, "I'm taking the healers with me." The massive Krovik dreadnought turned toward the station, its weapons charging for one final blast that would destroy everything. On the station, Commander Hana watched death approaching and felt strangely calm. Her people had spent their lives helping others. If this was how their story ended, at least they had tried to make the galaxy better. But Admiral June had other ideas. His flagship Storm's Herald suddenly accelerated beyond what should have been possible. The ship's hull began to glow from the stress, but it didn't slow down. It flew straight at the Krovik dreadnought like a missile. "Sir," his second-in-command called out, "collision in 30 seconds. We need to turn." "Negative," June replied, calmly. "All hands prepare for ramming speed. Evacuate to escape pods." "Sir, you can't ram a dreadnought with a cruiser. The physics don't work." Admiral June smiled. "Son, I'm from Earth. Physics is just a suggestion." The 2 ships hit each other at incredible speed. The collision lit up space like a new star. When the light faded, both ships were gone. But from the wreckage, dozens of small escape pods flew toward the human fleet. Admiral June's voice came over the radio, transmitted from his pod. "All ships, this is Admiral June. Mission accomplished. The Valari are safe." War Marshal Thane's pod was drifting in space nearby. He had survived the collision, but his entire fleet was gone. As human rescue ships approached to pick up survivors, he couldn't understand what he had just witnessed. "Why?" he asked over the radio. "Why would you sacrifice everything for aliens you barely know?" Admiral June's answer became famous across the galaxy. "Because that's what family does for family, and the Valari have been family to everyone for a very long time." 3 days after the battle, the Valari station looked completely different. Engineer Baum and her human repair crews had not only fixed the damage from the Krovik attack, they had made the station stronger than it had ever been. Commander Hana walked through the corridors, amazed at what she saw. The humans had taken pieces from destroyed Krovik ships and somehow made them work with Valari technology. The result was a combination that neither species could have built alone. "How did you do this so fast?" she asked Engineer Baum, who was installing new shield generators. Baum wiped grease from her hands and smiled. "Ma'am, when you grow up on a world that breaks everything you build, you learn to fix things quick and build them stronger the second time." In the medical bay, Sua was working alongside Medic Gyu. The human doctor was teaching her techniques that could save lives in ways the Valari had never imagined. At the same time, Sua was showing him how Valari crystal healing could help injuries that human medicine couldn't touch. "Your people are amazing teachers," Sua told him. "But I have to ask, aren't you worried about your admiral? He's still in the hospital section." Gyu shook his head. Admiral June, he's tougher than a tank. He'll be back on duty in a few days. That's what happens when you grow up dodging hurricanes and hunting tigers. Admiral June was indeed recovering, quickly. The collision that should have killed him had only broken a few ribs and given him a concussion. He was sitting up in his hospital bed, reading reports from his remaining ships. Major Leah came to visit him. "Sir, we've got a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up another Krovic fleet. This one is bigger, much bigger." June looked at the data she handed him. His face didn't change, but Leah could see his jaw tighten. "How big?" he asked. 400 ships, sir, including planet-killer weapons. Intelligence says War Marshal Thane called for help before we captured him. The Krovic Empire has decided that if they can't have Valari healing technology, they're going to make sure no one else can have it either. When will they arrive? 2 days, sir, maybe less. Admiral June was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled, and Major Leah remembered why humans scared other species. "Major, send a message to Earth Defense Command. Tell them we need the cavalry." "Sir, the nearest human fleet is 6 days away. They won't get here in time." "Not the fleet, Major. Send the message to the Volunteer Corps." Major Leah's eyes widened. The Volunteer Corps was something that existed, only in human space. When the military couldn't handle a situation, they sent out a call to civilian ships. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, mining vessels, exploration ships. Anyone with a ship and a weapon could volunteer to help. Other species thought it was insane. Civilians fighting in space battles? Impossible. But humans were different. On Earth, when disaster struck, everyone helped. It didn't matter if you were a soldier or a farmer or a shopkeeper. When people needed help, you helped. "Sir," Major Leah said slowly, "civilian ships can't fight a Krovic battle fleet. They'll be slaughtered." "Major, you're thinking like a soldier. Think like a human." The message went out on all human communication channels. The response was immediate. Captain Mina, commanding a cargo ship called Lucky Strike, was the first to reply. "Admiral June, this is Captain Mina. I've got 50 volunteers, aboard cargo ships and freighters. We're loading up with everything that explodes and heading your way." Captain Dong, aboard a passenger liner, was next. "Sir, I've got 200 volunteers. Half are veterans, half are just really angry that someone is threatening the people, who saved their families. We'll be there in 30 hours. The messages kept coming. Mining ships armed with industrial lasers, exploration vessels carrying survey teams who knew how to blow up mountains, even a few pleasure craft whose owners had military backgrounds. Commander Hana watched the human preparations with growing amazement and fear. "Admiral," she said to June, "you can't ask civilians to fight for us. We're not even your species. This isn't your war." Admiral June looked at her with surprise. "Commander, with all respect, you're wrong about both things." "I don't understand." "First, this became our war the moment someone attacked our friends. Second, you are our species. Maybe not genetically, but in every way that matters." Sua, who had been listening, stepped forward. "Admiral, I've been studying human psychology since you arrived. I need to understand something. Why are your people willing to die for us?" Admiral June was quiet for a moment. Then he told them a story. 2 years ago, there was a plague on the human colony of New Geneva, a disease that we had never seen before. Our doctors couldn't stop it. Children were dying. Families were being destroyed. He paused, looking out the window at the stars. Then a Valari medical ship arrived. Your people worked for 3 straight weeks without sleep. They saved 4,000 lives. When we tried to pay them, they refused. They said helping others was its own reward. He turned back to Commander Hana. "Commander, your people have been doing that across the galaxy for thousands of years, helping strangers, asking for nothing, making the universe better just because you can." "But we're healers," Hana said. "We don't fight wars." "No," Admiral June agreed. "You don't fight wars. You prevent them. Every life you save, every family you keep together, every species you help, that prevents wars. That stops conflicts before they start." Major Leah nodded. "Ma'am, humans understand something that other species sometimes forget. The strong protect, the weak, or everyone dies together. Your people have been protecting everyone for centuries. Now it's our turn to protect you." On his prison ship, War Marshal Thane was listening to human communications. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Hundreds of civilian ships were coming to fight. Cargo haulers and passenger liners were going to battle against Krovic warships. "They're all going to die," he told his guard, Sergeant Wu. Sergeant Wu shrugged. "Maybe, but they're going to make you pay for every life. That's the human way." "Why? What do they gain?" "Nothing. That's the point. We don't help people because we get something out of it. We help people because it's the right thing to do." Thane couldn't understand it. In Krovic culture, you only helped others if you got something in return. The idea of risking your life for strangers was insane, but as he listened to more human communications, he began to hear something that chilled him to his bones. The humans weren't scared. They were excited. They were looking forward to the fight. Captain Hyun, leading the human fighter squadron, was talking to his pilots. "Remember, people, we're not just fighting for the Valari. We're fighting for the idea that good people shouldn't have to be afraid. We're fighting so that species like the Valari can keep helping others without worrying about getting attacked." One of his pilots, a young woman named Jin, asked a question. "Sir, what if we lose? What if there are just too many of them?" "Captain, Hyun's answer became part of human military legend. Then we lose fighting for something worth dying for. And maybe, just maybe, we make enough noise that the rest of the galaxy wakes up and decides to start protecting the people who protect everyone else." The volunteer fleet began to arrive. Cargo ships with missile launchers welded to their hulls. Passenger liners with their elegant dining rooms converted to ammunition storage. Mining ships that had been turned into flying bombs. But the most impressive sight was the ship that arrived last. It was a colony transport called New Dawn, commanded by Captain Yuna. The ship was massive, designed to carry thousands of people to new worlds. Admiral June called her on the radio. "Captain Yuna, what's your plan?" "Sir, I've got 3,000 volunteers aboard. Engineers, doctors, soldiers, farmers, teachers. If we're going to make a stand, we're going to do it right." Commander Hana looked at the growing human fleet and felt something she had never felt before. 6 months after the battle, the Valari Station Harmony's Edge looked like a completely different place. What had once been a simple research station was now the first joint embassy between the Valari Confederacy and the Terran Republic. Commander, Hana walked through the new sections that Engineer Baum and her teams had built. Human and Valari technology worked together in ways that neither species had imagined possible. The result was something beautiful and strong, like the friendship between their peoples. In the medical bay, Sua was training with a team of human doctors. They had created new healing techniques that combined Valari crystal healing with human medical science. Patients who would have died before were now walking away completely healed. "The galaxy is going to be a much safer place," Medic Yu told her as they finished treating their latest patient. "Every life we save together is a life that can go on to save others." Admiral June was in his new office, reading reports from across human space. The story of the battle had spread everywhere, and the response had surprised even him. Applications to join the military were up 300%, but more importantly, applications to join the medical corps and the Peace Corps were up even more. Young humans wanted to be like the Valari. They wanted to help instead of hurt. A soft chime announced a visitor. Day entered the office carrying a crystal tablet that glowed with soft blue light. "Admiral," the young Valari said, "I have the final communication logs from our distress call. I thought you might want to see them." June took the tablet and read through the messages. Dozens of species had received the Valari distress call. All of them had refused to help because they were afraid of the Krovic Empire. But the last entry made him smile. It was from the Altarian Republic, one of the first species to refuse help. The message was simple. "To the Valari Confederacy and the Terran Republic. We would like to discuss a mutual defense treaty. If you can teach us to be as brave as you are, we promise to help the next time someone calls for aid." "Admiral," Day said, "we're getting messages like this from across the galaxy. Everyone wants to know how humans learned to fight like that." "What do you tell them?" June asked. "The truth. That you didn't learn to fight. You learned to protect. And there's a difference." In the prison section of the station, War Marshal Thane and Fleet Commander Vex were serving their sentences by helping rebuild the damage they had caused. It was a human idea. Instead of just punishing criminals, put them to work fixing what they had broken. Thane was working with Engineer Baum, learning how to repair the station systems he had tried to destroy. At first, he had been angry and resentful, but as weeks passed, he began to understand something that confused him. The humans treated him fairly. They gave him good food, medical care when he was sick, and even let him call his family back on, Krovik Prime. No one had ever treated a Krovik prisoner with kindness before. Why? He asked Engineer Bomb one day as they worked together to install new shield generators. Why what? She replied, not looking up from her work. Why treat us like this? We tried to kill you. We would have destroyed the Volari if you hadn't stopped us. Bomb paused in her work and looked at him. Because you're people too. Maybe you made bad choices, but that doesn't mean you're bad people. Everyone deserves a chance to be better. Thane was quiet for a moment. Then he asked the question that had been bothering him for months. How do you do it? How do humans fight like that? My people are warriors. We train for war from the time we can walk. But you fought like nothing I've ever seen. Engineer Bomb smiled. Thane, that's because you're thinking about it wrong. We didn't fight you like warriors. We fought you like parents. I don't understand. On Earth, parents will do anything to protect their children. They'll fight animals 3 times their size. They'll walk through fire. They'll sacrifice everything. They have. When humans decided the Volari were family, we fought like parents protecting our children. Thane thought about that for a long time. In the communications center, Day was reading messages that came in every day from across the galaxy. They weren't distress calls anymore. They were thank you letters. A family from the Centauri system thanked the Volari for saving their daughter during a mining accident. A research team from the Outer Rim thanked them for developing a cure for a plague that was killing their crops. A small colony thanked them for sending teachers who helped their children learn. Every message ended the same way. If you ever need help, we stand ready. But the most important message came from an unexpected source. Captain Mina, the cargo ship captain who had volunteered for the battle, sent a personal note to Commander Hana. Commander, my ship Lucky Strike is now carrying medical supplies instead of regular cargo. I've started a volunteer organization called the Galactic Relief Corps. We're cargo haulers, passenger ships, and freighters who carry emergency supplies to anyone who needs help. The Volari taught us that helping others is its own reward. The humans taught us that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they work together. Thank you for showing us who we could be. Admiral June read the message over Hana's shoulder and nodded approvingly. That's how it spreads, he said. One act of kindness creates another. One person willing to help inspires others to help. Pretty soon the whole galaxy is a little bit better. Major Leah came into the communications center with news. Admiral, we just received word from Earth Defense Command. The Galactic Council has officially recognized the Terran Republic as a major power. They want to offer us a permanent seat on the Council. What did Earth say? June asked. They said yes, but only if the Volari get a seat too. Apparently our government thinks healers should have as much say in galactic politics as warriors. Commander, Hana felt her crystalline body glow with a warm golden light, the Volari color for deep happiness. 1 year later, the story was still spreading across the galaxy. It had become a legend that parents told their children, that teachers shared with their students, that leaders remembered when they had to make difficult decisions. The story of the day aliens sent out a distress call, and Deathworlders answered, with a storm. But the most important part of the story wasn't the fighting. It was what happened after the fighting stopped. Sua had established the first interspecies medical college, where doctors from every species could learn from each other. Engineer Bomb had started a program that taught other species how to build things that could survive disasters. Captain Yuna's volunteer organization had grown into a galaxy-wide network of people willing to help during emergencies. War Marshal. Thane had completed his sentence and chose to stay on the station as a security advisor. He helped design defense systems that could protect without killing. Fleet Commander Vex had become an ambassador, working to prevent the kinds of conflicts that had brought him to fight the humans in the first place. And in the center of it all, the Volari continued to do what they had always done. They helped anyone who needed help, and they asked for nothing in return. But now they knew something that gave them strength. They weren't alone anymore. When good people needed help, there were others who would answer the call. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. The strong protect the weak, or everyone dies together. And sometimes the most important strength isn't the ability to destroy your enemies. Sometimes the most important strength is the ability to turn your enemies into friends. On a quiet night, as Day monitored the communication channels from his station, he picked up a transmission from a small colony on the edge of known space. It was a distress call. Pirates were attacking, and they needed help. But this time, the response was different. Within minutes, messages started coming in from across the galaxy, not just from humans, but from dozens of species. This is Captain Mina of the Galactic Relief Corps. We're on our way. This is the Altarian Defense Force. Help is coming. This is Captain Yuna with medical supplies and volunteers. This is the Centauri Republic. No one fights alone anymore. Day smiled as he forwarded the messages to the colony. The storm that had started with one distress call had become something bigger. It had become hope. And hope, once it starts spreading, is very hard to stop. The Volari had taught the galaxy that helping others was its own reward. The humans had taught the galaxy that ordinary people could do extraordinary things when they worked together. Now the galaxy was teaching itself that when good people stand together, nothing can stop them. Not even the dark between the stars.